Welcome, curious learners. Today we're plunging into the profound and, yes, often unsettling world of Fyodor Dostoevsky's literary masterpiece, Crime and Punishment.
It's certainly a journey, a deep one.
We've gathered a fascinating stack of sources, excerpts from Constance Garnett's classic translation, and our mission today is to journey with its tormented protagonist, Raskolnikov. We want to understand the story's progression, the pivotal developments, and really the intricate details that reveal the human heart under immense pressure.
It's like a psychological blueprint of a mind on the edge.
Exactly. Think of it as a compelling narrative shortcut.
Yeah.
A way to grasp the emotional and psychological core of this epic.
Absolutely. And what Dostoevsky masterfully extracts, even just from these excerpts, is a foundational truth. Extreme poverty isn't just a backdrop, it's a crucible.
A crucible, yeah.
It's where philosophical hubris, Raskolnikov's whole extraordinary man theory can fester and, well, rationalize unspeakable acts. It demonstrates how readily intellect can become a weapon against empathy. That's the core insight we're tracing as we follow a student's dark contemplation, the shocking act itself, and the torturous path that unfolds afterwards.
You can almost feel the weight of that already, can't you? Okay, let's unpack this and try, maybe, to keep up with the whirlwind inside our protagonist's mind. We begin, as all good stories do, with the incubation of a truly terrifying idea. Our story opens on an exceptionally hot evening, early in July, in St. Petersburg. You meet our young protagonist, Rodion Raskolnikov, as he emerges from his tiny garret.
That description is so vivid.
It really is. And when I say tiny, the description is clear. It's more like a cupboard than a room, tucked right under the roof of a high, five-storied house.
Claustrophobic?
Totally. The oppressive heat, the sheer claustrophobia of his surroundings, it immediately sets this tone of immense pressure, both external and internal. But his immediate concern isn't actually the suffocating heat, it's his landlady.
The debt.
Yes, he's hopelessly in debt to her for rent, dinners, attendance, everything. And every time he steps out, he has to pass her kitchen door, which is always open.
Always that potential confrontation.
Right. This constant proximity and his crushing debt, filling with a sick, frightened feeling, making him scowl with shame, almost physically recoiling from her, from that possible encounter. But the shame isn't just about his poverty, although his state is clearly dire. He's badly dressed in such rags that even someone used to shabbiness would feel embarrassed. That clearly highlights his destitution.
Though in that part of St. Petersburg.
Exactly. In his quarter of the city, near the bustling Haymarket, such shabbiness wouldn't even raise an eyebrow among the crowded trading and working-class population there. Yet for Raskolnikov, it's not really the external appearance that bothers him most.
It's internal.
Precisely. His heart is filled with an accumulated bitterness and contempt, and what he minds least in the street are his rags. He actively dislikes meeting acquaintances or former fellow students, almost as if their mere presence reminds him of a past he's fallen from, or perhaps of the person he once was, before this. This dark plan began to consume him. Then comes this jarring, almost surreal moment. A drunken man in a huge wagon, for some unknown reason, just shouts out, "Hey there, German hatter!" pointing directly at Raskolnikov.
Out of nowhere.
Completely. Yeah. Our protagonist stops suddenly, clutching his hat, this worn-out, rusty, brimless and bent thing. It's a moment of public ridicule, but instead of shame, something far more sinister overtakes him.
Yeah.
Quite another feeling akin to terror.
Terror, not just embarrassment.
Terror. And here, the seed of his menacing intentions is planted, or at least it's openly acknowledged internally. As he ascends the stairs to the fourth story, his chilling internal question echoes, resonating with a terrifying clarity. If I am so scared now, what would it be if it somehow came to pass that I were really going to do it? This is our first explicit hint, a whisper, really, of the dark plan already forming, a plan that seems to pull him with an irresistible, terrifying force. This nascent plan, this chilling internal question, it soon leads him to a reconnaissance mission. He decides to visit the old pawnbroker, Alyona Ivanovna.
Under false pretenses.
Yes, under the guise of pawning a watch. Imagine her. Described as a diminutive, withered-up old woman of 60 with sharp, malignant eyes and a sharp little nose.
Not a pleasant image.
Not at all. This isn't just physical description. Her very being, from her greasy, colorless hair down to her mangy fur cape, seems to embody the louse Raskolnikov believes she is. It fuels his twisted justification. She coughs and groans constantly, radiating miserliness and this almost visceral unpleasantness. He pawns his watch for a tiny sum, barely more than a ruble. But as he prepares to leave, he makes what seems like a casual inquiry, but is in fact crucial to his dark design.
The key question.
He asks, Are you always at home alone? Your sister is not here with you. This seemingly innocent question is a key detail, laying the groundwork for the terrible events to come. And that faint tinkle of her tin-like bell as he rings reminds him of something vaguely unsettling his already frayed nerves even further.
That's a critical exposition. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Raskolnikov's initial state is this potent cocktail of severe economic destitution, profound intellectual isolation, and deeply wounded pride.
Right.
His fear of his landlady, his aversion to acquaintances,
Huh.
they aren't just quirks. They highlight his profound alienation from society and, you could argue, from himself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the terror he feels about the hack comment, it isn't simply about his tattered clothes or even the immediate threat of public mockery. It feels like a profound reflection of the internal storm already brewing.
Like seeing his inner state exposed.
Exactly. A fear that maybe comes from seeing his inner turmoil exposed to the world, revealing the vulnerability beneath his intellectual arrogance. This raises an important question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Do you think Raskolnikov's planning, his reconnaissance, his careful thought, suggests a purely rational actor? Or is there still this deep current of desperation pulling him, making him almost a reluctant participant in his own terrifying theory?
That's a great question. Where does that line blur?
Right. Between true conviction and sheer survival instinct, especially when you consider his chillingly deliberate reconnaissance visit to Alyona Ivanovna. He's not just contemplating, he's actively testing the waters, gathering information, transforming a theoretical impulse into a concrete possibility. It's almost as if he's trying to prove something to himself.
That's a crucial distinction. It's almost like a desperate scientist conducting an experiment on his own soul, isn't it? As if the world outside Raskolnikov's garret is just as bleak as his inner landscape. Soon after, he finds himself in a tavern.
Ah, the Marmeladov encounter.
Yes, where he encounters Semyon Zaharovich Marmelov, a man with a grandiloquent style who immediately and almost desperately engages Raskolnikov in conversation.
He needs someone to listen.
He really does. Marmeladov, with a certain solemnity, launches into this eloquent yet desperate discourse on the difference between poverty and beggary. He asserts that poverty is not a vice, that's a true saying, but quickly adds that drunkenness is not a virtue, and that that's even truer.
But beggary.
But beggary, honored sir, beggary is a vice. He explains that in poverty, one can retain an innate nobility of soul, but in beggary, never. A man isn't chased out with a stick, he's swept out with a broom so as to make it as humiliating as possible.
That hits close to home for Raskolnikov, surely.
You have to think so. This self-flagellating philosophy immediately grabs Raskolnikov's attention, perhaps because he sees a reflection of his own desperate circumstances, a fear of slipping into that same abyss. Marmeladov then unravels the unfolding tragedy of his family, a narrative that paints such a stark picture of human suffering. He speaks of his wife, Katerina Ivanovna, an officer's daughter, whom he describes as magnanimous yet unjust, driven by despair to physically pull his hair out of pity.
The contradictions of desperation.
Exactly. And then the most heartbreaking revelation, delivered with this mournful sigh, his daughter, Sonia, has the yellow passport.
Meaning prostitution.
Yes, a stark implication of prostitution, all to support the family. In a moment of almost unbearable self-loathing, Marmeladov confesses that Sonia, his little darling, gave him her last all she had, a mere 30 kopecks for drink. She said nothing, only looked at him.
The silence is worse.
It hurts more. It hurts more when they don't blame, he cries, embodying this particular kind of tormented self-awareness. He recounts a brief, fleeting period of joy when he regained employment and how it transformed their squalid existence into something almost miraculous.
A glimpse of hope.
A tiny glimpse.
Yeah.
Katerina Ivanovna, despite having not any dresses, smartened herself up, cooked 2 courses, soup and salt meat with horseradish, a luxury they had never dreamed of. Sonia bought them a decent outfit. Even their landlady was invited for coffee.
And Katerina's stories.
Oh, yes. Katerina Ivanovna, swept up in this desperate pride, fabricated elaborate stories of his success. His Excellency himself came out to him, made all the others wait, and led Semyon Zaharovich by the hand before everybody into his study. Marmeladov admits she believed her own fantasies, and he didn't blame her.
The self-deception of survival.
But this fleeting hope was rapidly dashed by his relapse into alcoholism, tragically symbolized by his using Sonia's last money for more drink. He asked Raskolnikov, "Are you sorry for me, sir, or not?" He then leads Raskolnikov back to his squalid room to witness the full, vivid tableau of their despair.
It's a harrowing scene.
It really is. Katerina Ivanovna is terribly emaciated, with magnificent dark brown hair and with a hectic flush in her cheeks. Her breathing in nervous, broken gasps, her eyes glittering as in fever. The air in the room is close, filled with tobacco smoke from the inner rooms.
The children, too.
Yes. The youngest child, a girl of 6, is asleep on the floor, while a boy, a year older, cries. Probably he just had a beating. Beside him, a 9-year-old girl, tall and thin, wearing a thin and ragged chemise, tries to comfort him, her large dark eyes, watching her mother with alarm. And Marmeladov himself drops to his knees in the doorway, unable to face his family, just a picture of utter brokenness.
Crucially, Marmeladov's story isn't just tragic flavor, is it? It's Dostoevsky directly confronting Raskolnikov's intellectual arrogance with raw, visceral human suffering.
Right, it's not just background color.
It forces Raskolnikov and us to weigh the abstract greater good of his theory, which he believes might elevate humanity against the immediate, undeniable pain of a family driven to prostitution and alcoholism.
The human cost.
Exactly. The detail of Katerina Ivanovna fabricating elaborate stories, clinging to delusions of grandeur, is profoundly poignant. It highlights how pride and self-deception can become a desperate, fragile shield against overwhelming despair. This narrative significantly deepens the emotional context for Raskolnikov. He is now directly witnessing the kind of human misery and seemingly insurmountable obstacles that his extreme, extraordinary man theory might, in his warped mind, justify overcoming.
Is his theory really about alleviating suffering, then?
Or is it merely an intellectual escape from it? A way to rationalize violence against those he deems unworthy, to uplift those he deems worthy. It's almost as if the universe is presenting him with case studies for his dangerous philosophical experiment, and this one is a particularly gut-wrenching example.
And as if the external suffering Marmeladov exposed wasn't enough, it seems the world's horrors begin to infiltrate Raskolnikov's deepest thoughts, manifesting in a truly terrifying dream, almost a premonition of the violence to come.
The dream of the mayor. Powerful stuff.
Incredibly. He dreams of a crowd gathered around an old, wretched mare, utterly exhausted, standing there, head hanging, enduring repeated blows. The scene quickly devolves into brutal cruelty as Mikolka, the owner, and others mercilessly flog the mare to death.
Senseless cruelty.
Ostensibly to make her pull an impossible load, even though she is clearly beyond exhaustion. The details of the mare's suffering are agonizing. She's feebly kicking, with a bleeding dead head, her eyes reflecting the pain until they are glazed over. It's a vision of relentless, senseless violence, a pure act of cruelty. The dream's raw, emotional core, however, comes from a young boy. He is beside himself, made his way screaming through the crowd to embrace and kiss the dead mare's eyes and lips.
His inner child reacting.
It seems so. Then he flies in a frenzy with his little fists at Mikolka, desperate to stop the injustice. This innocent, visceral reaction of compassion, this profound human empathy, is a stark contrast to the surrounding brutality, and it is Raskolnikov himself experiencing this as a child in his dream.
So it's his own empathy fighting back.
He wakes from this dream in a state of profound psychological distress, as if it were not merely a nightmare, but a direct premonition or profound challenge to his conscience, a horrifying reflection of the violence he himself is contemplating. It's his own buried humanity screaming at him, trying to pull him back from the abyss.
The dream of the beaten mare is an incredibly potent and deeply symbolic moment within the narrative, absolutely. It's Raskolnikov's subconscious grappling with the immense brutality he contemplates committing.
Right.
The young boy in the dream acts as his own buried empathy and moral repulsion, a primal, innocent part of him, still recoiling from the raw horror of violence, even when directed at an animal.
It's visceral.
It really is. This isn't just a random dream. It's a profound psychological event that highlights the violent act Raskolnikov is contemplating. It forces him to confront the visceral reality of ending a life, even a wretched nag's, and the inherent ugly cruelty involved, which he so carefully tries to rationalize and intellectualize in his waking hours.
It lays bare the conflict.
Yes, it's a direct conflict between his abstract theories and the innate human capacity for compassion, laying bare his internal conflict and foreshadowing the immense guilt to come.
And as if fate itself is pushing him, Raskolnikov soon overhears a conversation that provides crucial nuggets of knowledge for his burgeoning plan.
The tavern conversation.
Exactly. In a tavern, purely by chance, he overhears a student and an officer discussing the very pawnbroker he intends to target, Alyona Ivanovna. They describe her as first-rate, meaning she's an excellent target, as rich as a Jew, yet an awful old harpy.
Confirming his view of her.
Precisely. She gives a quarter the value of an article and took 5 and even 7% a month. This conversation paints a clear picture of a truly despicable woman, further solidifying Raskolnikov's twisted moral justifications, making him feel that society would be better off without her. But the truly crucial information comes with the mention of Lizaveta, Alyona Ivanovna's half-sister.
The potential obstacle.
She is described as a wretched little creature whom the old woman was continually beating and kept in complete bondage like a small child, though Lizaveta was at least 6 feet high.
Exploited and trapped.
Utterly. Lizaveta, despite her imposing stature, is completely subservient, working day and night for her sister, doing all the cooking, washing, sewing, charring, giving her sister all she earned. She did not dare to accept an order or job of any kind without her sister's permission.
And the will.
Most damningly, the student reveals that Alyona Ivanovna has already made her will, and Lizaveta will receive not a farthing, nothing but movables, chairs, and so on. All the money is left to a monastery. To top it off, Lizaveta is described as continually with child, making her even more vulnerable and exploited.
So she's completely disposable in the old woman's eyes.
It seems so. This entire conversation is a gold mine of information for Raskolnikov. It confirms the pawnbroker's perceived wickedness and, more importantly, reveals that Lizaveta, the only other person living in the flat, will often be absent or easily subdued.
Removing a major obstacle.
Yes, removing a major obstacle to Raskolnikov's plan and solidifying his conviction that her demise would not be a great loss, perhaps even a merciful release, in his twisted view.
What's critical here is how this chance encounter acts as both external validation for Raskolnikov's target, confirming the pawnbroker's perceived worthlessness and greed, and provides vital tactical information about Lizaveta.
It feels almost fated.
It really does. This isn't mere coincidence. It acts as a powerful catalyst, accelerating his internal justification for the crime, making the act seem not only more feasible, but perhaps even morally permissible within the increasingly rigid framework of his developing theory. The discovery that Lizaveta, the half-sister, is kept in such cruel bondage, continually exploited, and will receive nothing from the will, is particularly damning for the pawnbroker in Raskolnikov's eyes. It further dehumanizes his intended victims, allowing him to rationalize that their lives are inconsequential or even a burden on society.
It paves the way intellectually.
Precisely. This is a crucial step in his descent, where human suffering is twisted into philosophical justification, cementing the idea that the world might indeed be better off without them.
With his theory incubated and the intelligence gathered, Raskolnikov approaches the precipice of his horrifying plan. His mental state before the crime is this terrifying blend of intellectual certainty and profound inner turmoil.
The conflict intensifies.
Yes, his analysis of the moral question, he believes, is complete. His casuistry, that clever but often deceptive application of moral rules, finding exceptions, had become keen as a razor, leaving him with no rational objections, he thinks.
But inwardly.
Yet, paradoxically, in the last resort, he simply ceased to believe in himself, feeling forced and drawing him to it, as if an external power were compelling him, stripping him of his own agency.
He's not even in control.
Exactly. The thought, once a mere dream, now takes a new, menacing, and quite unfamiliar shape. No longer an abstract idea, but a tangible, terrifying reality, something almost separate from himself, yet inexorably pulling him forward. Just as he's about to make his move, a trifling circumstance nearly derails him completely. As he passes his landlady's kitchen, hoping to grab the axe unseen.
The axe he needs for the plan.
And he's amazed to find Nastasia, the servant, not only at home, but busy hanging laundry. His heart just sinks. With Nastasia there, it's impossible to take the axe without being seen. He feels overwhelmed and believes it's the end of everything.
A sudden halt.
A sudden, visceral reaction to the disruption of his carefully laid plans. He must then procure the axe elsewhere, implicitly from a woodshed, carrying it under the coat, a new, unplanned obstacle that only heightens the tension. He still pushes forward, though, drawn by this invisible current, returning to the scene of the crime. As he approaches the pawnbroker's flat again, he notices the flat below hers is empty, and even the one opposite.
The stroke of luck.
You'd think it would calm him, but his physical symptoms are acute. He's out of breath, questioning, am I very pale? Am I not evidently agitated? He even wonders if he should wait a little longer, till my heart leaves off thumping. You can almost feel the tension, can't you?
Palpable.
It's a clear battle between Raskolnikov's intellectual resolve and his body's raw, visceral fear.
This meticulous detailing of Raskolnikov's internal and external state just before the crime really highlights the immense psychological burden he's carrying. His carefully constructed intellectual justifications are in constant, brutal conflict with his human nerves and conscience.
The mind versus the body.
It's a vivid portrayal of the mind trying to dominate the body and failing dramatically. The trifling circumstance with Nastasia underscores the fragile, almost accidental nature of his plan and how easily it could have been prevented, adding a layer of ironic dread to the narrative.
Right.
His struggle to compose himself, to control his outward symptoms of agitation, speaks volumes about the internal chaos and the sheer terror of crossing a line that, once breached, can never be uncrossed. This is the psychology of the point of no return, where theoretical conviction meets the terrifying reality of action, and the human being, at least for a moment, recoils from the abyss.
The moment of truth arrives, shrouded in a chilling silence. Inside the pawnbroker's apartment, Alyona Ivanovna, ever distrustful, scrutinizes Raskolnikov as it presents his pledge, a silver cigarette case wrapped in a dirty rag.
Her focus is on the object.
Yes, not him. And she turns her back to the window, to the light, to untie the string, leaving him altogether for some seconds. This is the critical, terrifying moment. Raskolnikov unbuttons his coat, frees the axe from the noose.
But his body resists.
His hands are fearfully weak, growing more numb and more wooden. A sudden giddiness comes over him, but he strikes. The first murder is committed, a sickening blow that reverberates far beyond the small apartment. The horror, however, is far from over. Almost immediately after, the second, quite unexpected murder occurs.
Lizaveta returns.
Yes, Lizaveta the half-sister returns, entering the flat purely by chance. Raskolnikov is forced to strike again, a monstrous, unplanned act that shatters any illusion of control he might have had.
The theory falls apart.
Completely. His immediate reaction is not triumph, but profound terror and self-loathing. Fear gained more and more mastery over him, especially after this second, quite unexpected murder. A powerful feeling of loathing especially surged up within him and grew stronger every minute.
Not the reaction of an extraordinary man.
Not at all. He desperately wants to flee, horrified by what he'd done, feeling that he might have gone to give himself up, and not from fear, but from simple horror and loathing. The abstract idea of overstepping barriers has collided with the visceral, sickening reality of violence, and the outcome is utterly different from his cold, intellectual projections. The sheer weight of his deed crashes down on him, immediate and devastating.
Here, Dostoevsky graphically depicts the profound chasm between Raskolnikov's abstract, intellectualized theory and the horrific, uncontrollable reality of violence. The planned, singular act instantly doubles, showing the uncontrollable cascade of consequences once moral boundaries are crossed.
It spirals instantly.
It's a powerful illustration that theory rarely accounts for the messy, unpredictable nature of real-world action, especially when it involves human lives. The feeling of loathing that immediately surges within him, rather than triumph or relief, signals a crucial failure of his extraordinary man theory. This theory presupposed a certain detachment and control that Raskolnikov clearly lacks in the aftermath of the deed. His body and soul are rebelling against the intellectual construct he tried to impose, indicating a deep, inherent humanity that his philosophy attempted to deny.
The humanity he tried to suppress.
Exactly. This immediate visceral recoil is the first crack in his carefully constructed intellectual fortress, exposing the moral fragility beneath.
As Raskolnikov stands amidst the horror, still reeling from his monstrous acts, an even more terrifying sound pierces the silence. The tin-like bell ringing.
Someone's at the door?
Yes, signaling the arrival of Koch and a student. Panic seizes him, overwhelming his already shattered nerves. He grips the axe, hiding, listening to their baffled conversation, their persistent tugging at the door. His giddiness came over him again, and he fears he shall fall down.
Trapped!
He hears the student argue, it's evident there's something wrong here. As they stand just outside the locked door, the thin barrier between Raskolnikov and discovery. His mind races, convinced he's on the verge of capture.
But they leave.
Miraculously, yes, they eventually leave, though not without lingering suspicion. Once they're gone, he makes frantic and clumsy attempts to hide the stolen items. He stuffs them into pockets. Then, finding no other quick solution, he hides them under a large, unhewn stone in a deserted yard, a place he knows from a previous walk.
Without even looking at them.
Significantly, yes. He does not examine the items or the money. He doesn't even know how much is in the purse, only that it is full to bursting. His focus is purely on concealment, on escaping the immediate consequences, not on the spoils of his crime.
The motive wasn't really robbery.
It seems not. The very idea of the money, the material gain, seems irrelevant, almost repulsive in the face of what he has just done. His return to his tiny garret is no relief. He collapses in anguish, overcome by an intolerable sensation of infinite terror as he had never experienced before.
The body shuts down.
Nastasia, the servant, brings him soup, observing that he's shaking with fever. He descends into a long, feverish delirium, remembering fragments of voices, people wanting to take him away, others threatening him.
But not the crime itself.
Yet throughout this torment, he has a mental block regarding that, the crime itself. He cannot recall it, or rather, his mind refuses to let him fully confront it, but he feels that he had forgotten something he ought to remember, an oppressive, nameless dread.
Repression.
This repression is a key psychological defense mechanism, protecting him for a time from the full devastating weight of his actions, but at the cost of his sanity and peace.
This part powerfully demonstrates the profound psychosomatic impact of the crime. Raskolnikov's immediate physical illness, the fever, the delirium, the giddiness, is a direct manifestation of his moral and psychological breakdown.
His body is screaming.
His body remembers and reacts to the horror, even if his mind attempts to repress the explicit memory of the act. The detail that he hid the stolen items without even looking at them, without examining the money, is crucial.
Why so crucial?
It underscores the abstract nature of his motive. It wasn't primarily material gain he sought, but rather the proving of his right to transgress, the validation of his extraordinary man theory.
Right, the proof.
The fever and delirium serve as both punishment and a temporary escape for his mind, a way to process, or rather to avoid fully processing, the unspeakable horror he has wrought. It's a powerful depiction of how guilt can consume a person from the inside out, turning the body itself into a prison of consequence, where the truth of the deed relentlessly haunts the psyche.
As Raskolnikov slowly emerges from his harrowing delirium, he finds himself under the care of his devoted friend, Razumihin.
A complete contrast to Raskolnikov.
Absolutely. Razumihin is energetic, almost bear-like, physically strong, steadfastly loyal, and incredibly practical. He's been looking after Raskolnikov, bringing him soup and tea, even playfully chiding Nastasia for her tea-making habits.
Genuine care.
And Razumihin's care isn't just emotional. He provides crucial practical help. He retrieves Raskolnikov's IOU from the landlady, Praskovya Pavlovna, and settles his crushing debt, which he describes as 1,000 million rubles.
He smooths things over.
Yes, he even calls the landlady Pashenka and explains how he's managed it, presenting the torn IOU to Raskolnikov. It's a demonstration of selfless friendship that Raskolnikov so desperately needs, yet often pushes away, lost in his own internal world. Amidst this fragile recovery, however, comes the dreaded summons, a gray folded paper sealed with bottle wax, demanding his presence at the police office.
Panic stations again.
Instantly, Raskolnikov's panic returns with full force. His mind races, immediately jumping to the worst possible conclusion. It's a trick. They want to decoy me there and confound me over everything.
Paranoia takes over.
He fears he's lightheaded and might blurt out something stupid, revealing his deepest secret. The internal monologue reveals the intense paranoia that now grips him, a constant gnawing fear of discovery, making every shadow a threat, every casual encounter a trap. At the police office, he encounters the explosive lieutenant, Ilya Petrovich, and Nikodin Fomich, the head clerk. The atmosphere is stifling, the room crowded with clerks and petitioners. He feels dizzier than ever.
Trying to read the situation.
His mind reels, trying to guess at their intentions, searching for any sign of accusation. He sees clerks, some fashionably dressed and foppish, others unkempt, all blurring into a suffocating tableau. But then,
The relief.
to his immense, indescribable relief, it's revealed that the summons is merely about the debt to his landlady, a trivial matter compared to the unspeakable weight on his soul. A load was lifted from his back. The relief so profound, it's almost physically painful, a temporary reprieve from the constant psychological torment.
That's a powerful sequence. Razumihin's genuine and pragmatic friendship starkly contrasts with Raskolnikov's internal turmoil and his profound isolation. Razumihin offers a lifeline of human connection and practical support that Raskolnikov's theoretical, self-imposed world cannot possibly provide.
A connection he rejects, mostly.
It highlights the basic human need for care that Raskolnikov has denied himself. The false alarm with the police summons is a brilliant narrative device. It's designed to heighten Raskolnikov's paranoia to an almost unbearable degree, only to then provide a temporary, almost agonizing reprieve.
But it doesn't last.
This reprieve, however, is fleeting. It merely underscores the constant psychological pressure he's under, the feeling of always being on the edge of discovery, which ironically prevents true healing and peace of mind. It's a demonstration of how the external world, even when benign, constantly triggers his internal guilt.
The reprieve is indeed short-lived because soon Raskolnikov enters a protracted and deeply unsettling psychological cat-and-mouse game with Porfiry Petrovich, the head of the detective department.
Enter Porfiry.
Yes. Porfiry is introduced as a man of about 35, short, stout even to corpulence, with a sickly yellowish color to his face, but a vigorous and rather ironical expression.
The eyes.
His eyes shine with a watery, mawkish light under almost white blinking eyelashes, an expression strangely out of keeping with his somewhat womanish figure, giving him this serious, almost unsettling air. He doesn't seem like a conventional police inspector, does he?
No, not at all. More intellectual.
Porfiry's approach is subtle and psychological from the outset. He engages Raskolnikov in seemingly innocuous conversation about various topics, appearing to ramble about middle sort, people being awkward in conversation. Then, casually, almost offhandedly,
The article.
he reveals he knows Raskolnikov published an article in the periodical review, signed with an initial. Raskolnikov, astonished, admits to writing an article for the weekly review months ago, unaware it was published in the periodical after an amalgamation.
Pulling the rug out from under him?
Porfiry even suggests he could get money for it, highlighting Raskolnikov's solitary life and his poverty, a masterful way to subtly bring Raskolnikov's self-perception into question. This seemingly casual probing then leads to the extraction of Raskolnikov's dangerous theory. Porfiry, with sly precision, probes Raskolnikov's core philosophical argument. Humanity is divided into ordinary and extraordinary individuals.
Laying out the core of Raskolnikov's justification.
Ordinary men must live in submission, adhering to law and order, while extraordinary men, he explains, have an inner right to decide in his own conscience to overstep certain obstacles for a greater good, even eliminate others, citing historical figures like Napoleon.
Even justifying scientific progress through sacrifice.
Right. He suggests that for scientific discovery, like Kepler and Newton's, sacrificing a dozen or 100 lives would be a duty. Porfiry listens intently, occasionally interrupting with his own theories about crime being a result of environment only, ridiculing the idea of a living soul, and pushing Raskolnikov to defend his more radical ideas. Porfiry's taunts become increasingly pointed. He plays on Raskolnikov's nervously irritable temperament, casually mentioning Raskolnikov's visit to take a flat at night and asking about the blood, unnerving Raskolnikov profoundly.
Turning the screws.
You can almost feel the walls closing in on Raskolnikov as he feels like a cat with a mouse, trembling with rage and paranoia, trying to figure out if it's ill fancy or they know. He wonders if Porfiry is trying to upset his nerves or merely tease him, vowing to remain silent and arrogant, convinced he's too clever to be caught by such simple tricks.
This encounter truly is the psychological engine of the novel. Porfiry operates not with traditional evidence, but like a master chess player within the labyrinth of Raskolnikov's mind. He's less interested in what happened and more in why, in the philosophical underpinning of the crime.
He's dissecting the motive.
Exactly. His brilliant dismissal of Nikolai's confession, which we're about to hear about, as too clever, isn't just a smirk. It's a profound statement. It signifies that Porfiry understands the unique psychological profile of a true transgressor, a man driven by intellectual conceit rather than simple greed or desperation.
He knows his man.
He's looking for the soul of the criminal, not just the circumstantial facts. He recognizes that Nikolai's elaborate story, trying to preemptively disarm suspicion, is precisely not how a truly tormented mind like Raskolnikov's would behave. It's a subtle but devastating psychological profile he's building, where Raskolnikov's very intellect becomes his trap.
And speaking of Nikolai's confession, a sudden, unexpected development changes the game, or at least it seems to. Nikolai, a house painter who was working in the building on the day of the murder, confesses to the crime.
And attempts suicide.
Yes. He had apparently brought some gold earrings to a dram shop owner, claiming he found them in the street, then later tried to hang himself and confess to the police, saying he was a sinner and wanted to accept suffering.
Razumin buys it.
Completely. Razumin, who was present, is immensely relieved and believes Nikolai vehemently arguing for his innocence when they were initially detained. But Porfiry, with that knowing smirk, dismisses the confession outright. Too clever. No, my boy, you're too clever. That beats everything.
Too convenient.
He implies the confession is far too melodramatic and convenient. That Nikolai's story about trying to disarm suspicion by making a scene with his companions on the stairs was pure genius. Too clever for a simple workman. It's a masterful piece of psychological manipulation, discrediting the confession while seemingly validating Nikolai's cunning. The true reason for Porfiry's unwavering confidence, however, is revealed only after Raskolnikov leaves, filled with a renewed sense of defiance, believing he's won this round.
The hidden witness.
Exactly. The man who saw Raskolnikov asking about the blood at the pawnbroker's flat, the one Raskolnikov encountered by the gate and made a dismissive reply to, had come to confess his sin of not reporting it immediately to the police, his conscience finally catching up to him.
And he was right there.
This witness, by sheer chance, was sitting in the next room during their entire conversation, overhearing everything, inadvertently providing crucial, tangible evidence against Raskolnikov.
Incredible time.
The suspense and emotional drama of this encounter are immense, with Raskolnikov's inner monologue filled with rage, paranoia, and self-doubt. He is trapped not by direct physical evidence initially, but by a chilling web of psychological insight and unfortunate, almost fated coincidences. Porfiry understands that for an investigator of his caliber, psychological facts and inconsistencies are often far more compelling and revealing than purely circumstantial ones, especially when dealing with a mind as complex as Raskolnikov's.
That's exactly right. Porfiry's true genius lies in his understanding of the criminal psyche. He knows that Raskolnikov is not a common thief or a simple murderer driven by greed. His crime stems from an intellectual construct, from a theory, and therefore, his path to exposure will also be an intellectual one.
It's a battle of minds.
He's not looking for a confession forced by fear, but one born from Raskolnikov's own internal collapse. The revelation of the hidden witness underscores Porfiry's calculated, almost prophetic approach. He lets Raskolnikov squirm, lets him believe he's being clever, all the while knowing he holds the definitive card.
Playing the long game.
This isn't just an interrogation. It's a profound psychological experiment where the detective uses the criminal's own mind as both the weapon and the means of his undoing. It's a battle of wits where Porfiry already holds the winning hand, patiently waiting for Raskolnikov to play his final, self-incriminating move, not because he has to, but because his conscience or his theory demands it.
Just as Raskolnikov is caught in Porfiry's psychological snare, his personal world expands dramatically with the arrival of his mother, Pulcheria Alexandrovna, and his sister, Avdotya Romanovna, or Dunya.
More pressure from the outside.
Yes, they arrive in St. Petersburg, full of both hope and anxiety for Raskolnikov. Pulcheria Alexandrovna's letter to Raskolnikov, which we have access to, reveals Dunya's prior harrowing ordeal.
With Svidrigaylov?
Exactly. She had been subjected to a shameful proposal from Arkady Ivanovich Svidrigaylov, who had been her employer. This caused a scandal, leading to Dunya being packed off at once by his wife, Marfa Petrovna, who even went so far as to strike Dunya in the garden, believing her to be the cause of the scandal.
A terrible situation for Dunya.
However, Svidrigaylov later cleared Dunya's name with a nobly and touchingly written letter, expressing regret for his baseness, but leaving this lingering shadow over Dunya's reputation and dignity. The letter also details Dunya's recent engagement to Pyotr Petrovich Luzhin.
The solution.
He's a well-to-do man who has made his fortune and holds 2 posts in the government. He is presented as a stable, financially secure solution to their desperate poverty, a potential savior for the family. However,
there's always a however with Luzhin.
Luzhin comes with his own self-serving philosophy. He prefers marrying a poor woman, one who owes everything to their husband's bounty, believing it leads to more profitable moral character.
How charming.
Pulcheria Alexandrovna naively hopes that Luzhin will help Raskolnikov with his university studies, not as charity, but as salary earned by your own work, a hope fueled by desperation and a desire to see her son rise in the world. The entire family is banking on this marriage, seeing it as their only way out of destitution, a profound burden placed on Dunya's shoulders.
This section powerfully highlights the profound sacrifices often made by women in this society, and the entanglement of love, duty, and sheer financial necessity. Dunya's engagement, while offering a semblance of security for her family, clearly comes at a significant moral and personal cost.
It's a huge compromise.
Luzhin, with his condescending philosophy, embodies a particular kind of bourgeois morality, one that values control and personal gain above genuine affection and mutual respect. The detail of his theory of the superiority of wives raised from destitution is particularly repugnant, revealing his desire for a submissive wife he can dominate, who will be eternally grateful.
That was quite chilling.
This narrative raises an important question for the listener. How much moral compromise is acceptable for the sake of family survival and ambition? And at what point does such compromise become a betrayal of self and an insult to dignity?
Those are indeed pressing questions, especially for Dina. The stage is set for an explosive confrontation, the family dinner. Raskolnikov's initial reaction to his mother and sister's arrival is far from joyful. It's an almost insane irritation,
Pushing them away.
a clear sign of his deep inner turmoil and his inability to reconcile his internal world with external expectations, particularly any demands on his emotional energy. Luzhin arrives, displaying an immediate arrogance and attempting to dominate the conversation to assert his authority over the entire family. He not only insults Raskolnikov, but subtly slanders Sonia, hinting at her notorious behavior.
Big mistake.
Huge. This proves to be Luzhin's undoing. Raskolnikov, already on edge, launches into an impassioned defense of Sonia, declaring that Luzhin is not worth the little finger of that unfortunate girl.
Defending Sonia.
Then he drops a bombshell, a direct challenge to Luzhin's carefully constructed superiority. He has already had Sonia sit with his mother and sister, openly associating her with his family, shattering Luzhin's attempts to isolate him and his family from Sonia. This leads to the dramatic rupture. Dunya, with resolute conviction and unexpected force, rejects Luzhin, declaring that a marriage with him would be a vileness.
Dunya finds her voice.
She initially asserts that she would not marry him if she were not convinced she could respect him. But in a later, more honest exchange with Raskolnikov, she admits that was not true, revealing her immense sacrifice, her willingness to marry for the family's sake, but her ultimate refusal to betray her own soul.
Powerful moment for her.
Luzhin, utterly bewildered by Dunya's sudden change of heart and the collapse of his carefully constructed plans and his image of himself, storms out defeated and humiliated. In the aftermath, a wave of palpable relief washes over Pulcheria Alexandrovna and particularly Razumihin. Razumihin sees joy as palpable, though unexpressed.
He sees an opening.
He sees a future where he can devote his life to them. Through a new publishing venture he envisions, his loyalty and love finally given a path forward. He feels a ton of weight had fallen off his heart. Raskolnikov, however,
So conflicted.
paradoxically remains sullen and indifferent, despite having been the most insistent on breaking with Luzhin. His inner thoughts reveal his continued conflict. Proud creature, she won't admit she wants to do it out of charity. Too haughty. Even in a moment of outward victory for his family, his inner demons refuse him peace, constantly questioning motives, constantly at war with any hint of genuine human connection or selflessness.
This sequence is a powerful demonstration of Dunya's remarkable strength of character and moral agency. Her decisive rejection of Luzhin isn't just a personal choice. It's a profound rejection of the transactional nature of marriage and the attempts to control her and her family.
She chooses integrity.
It highlights a woman asserting her dignity in a society where women often had few choices, choosing her integrity over perceived financial security. The fact that Raskolnikov, who instigated the break, remains sullen and indifferent, reflects his profound inability to fully embrace the positive outcomes of his actions.
Still trapped inside himself.
His continued inner conflict, even when externally victorious, is very telling. It shows that his own internal struggle runs far deeper than mere intellectual argument or familial loyalty, a struggle that he projects onto others, like his sister. He is still wrestling with the core of his being, even as those around him find glimmers of hope and human connection.
In the quiet aftermath of the family turmoil, a beacon of suffering and spiritual grace emerges. Sonia, Marmeladov's daughter, makes a modest and timid arrival at Raskolnikov's room.
Following instructions about the funeral.
Yes, she is described as very young, indeed almost like a child, modestly and poorly dressed, but with an unmistakable kindliness and simplicity shining in her clear blue eyes. She's shy, easily embarrassed, deeply humbled by her circumstances, carrying the immense burden of her life with quiet grace. In a moment of intense psychological manipulation, or perhaps desperation, Raskolnikov compels Sonia to read from the Bible, specifically the story of the raising of Lazarus.
A deeply significant passage.
Her profound reluctance, her hands shaking, her voice breaking twice before she can begin, it immediately tells you just how deeply personal this story, this secret treasure of faith, is to her, carefully guarded amidst the squalor and abuse of her life.
Her connection to Lizaveta, too.
Yes, she even tells Raskolnikov that she had a requiem service for Lizaveta, whom she considered a friend and said, "Will see God." A small but profound act of compassion towards one of his victims. But then something truly remarkable happens as she reads. Her voice, trembling at first, gathers strength and rang out like a bell as she reaches the climax of the miracle.
Finding power in the words.
She speaks of Jesus weeping and the Jews marveling at how he loved Lazarus. When she reads the line, "Could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused that even this man should not have died?" Her voice drops as she passionately reproduces the doubt and censure of the blind, disbelieving Jews.
But with hope underneath.
Yet, she reads with a triumphant joy, identifying with the hope that he too is blinded and unbelieving. He too will hear. He too will believe. Yes, yes, at once, now. She dreams that Raskolnikov too will be brought to belief, quivering with happy anticipation, a pure, innocent faith directed at his tortured soul.
This reading of the Lazarus story is perhaps the emotional and spiritual core of the novel, an undeniable turning point for Raskolnikov's redemption. Sonia, despite her desperate and humiliating circumstances, embodies an unshakable faith, profound compassion, and an innate moral purity.
She's a counterforce to his cynicism.
Her struggle to read, her initial fear, and then her eventual powerful delivery speak volumes about the human spirit's capacity for hope and spiritual resilience amidst the most crushing despair. The Lazarus story itself is a direct, profound appeal to Raskolnikov's hardened, intellectualized heart.
A path to resurrection.
It suggests a path to spiritual resurrection and renewal that lies far beyond his rationalizations and self-imposed isolation, offering not a logical solution, but a miracle of faith and love, of one soul reaching out to another. It's a moment of profound spiritual vulnerability and revelation for both Sonia and, unknowingly at this point, for Raskolnikov, setting the stage for the true turning point in his inner journey.
In the charged atmosphere following the reading, Raskolnikov prepares for his ultimate confession, the moment he finally breaks his self-imposed silence. An internal battle rages within him.
Hatred turning to love.
Yes, a strange, surprising sensation of a sort of bitter hatred for Sonia passed through his heart, perhaps because her pure faith threatens his intellectual fortress. But then, just as suddenly, that hatred vanished like a phantom, replaced by a dawning, profound love, a recognition of the very humanity he had tried to deny.
The physical parallels, too.
His physical reaction parallels the crime itself. His sensations that moment were terribly harrowing, like the moment when he had stood over the old woman with the axe in his hand. A feeling of overwhelming inevitability, a point of no return, but this time leading to revelation rather than destruction. He finally utters the words, though initially struggling, the truth tearing through him. He confesses his terrible deed, admitting, "I killed her accidentally. He meant to kill the old woman when she was alone and he went there. And then Lizaveta came in, he killed her too."
And Sonia's reaction.
Sonia's response, though dreadfully frightened at first, is not condemnation, but one of immediate, unwavering compassion and acceptance. "No, no, never, nowhere. I will follow you everywhere," she cries, offering a spontaneous promise to follow him to Siberia.
Unconditional love.
A testament to her boundless love and faith, her willingness to share his suffering. Raskolnikov then attempts to explain his true, deeper motive, which was not monetary gain, as the judges would later assume, but an intellectual experiment.
The core of his theory.
He explains, "I wanted to find out then and quickly whether I was a louse like everybody else or a man, whether I can step over barriers or not, whether I have the rights."
The right to transgress.
He confesses that lying in his cramped garret, with its low ceilings and tiny reams that cramp the soul and the mind, he developed this theory, this desperate attempt to assert his will and prove himself beyond the common herd. He felt he was being led by the devil, acknowledging his own destruction came from going into it like a wise man.
Acknowledging the flaw in his reasoning.
He wanted to murder without casuistry, for myself alone, not even for his mother, not for wealth or power, but to find out something else, to test the very limits of human morality in his own perceived exceptionalism.
This is the profound turning point. Raskolnikov's confession to Sonia isn't just about revealing a crime. It's about exposing the raw, intellectualized nihilism that drove him. His desire to prove his right to transgress, to see if he could step over barriers, reveals a profound inner struggle for identity and meaning.
A desperate search for distinction.
A desperate attempt to distinguish himself from the louse like everybody else. This intellectual pride, nurtured in the oppressive confines of his cupboard of a room, directly led to his horrific act. It's the ultimate consequence of abstract thought disconnected from human empathy.
And Sonia's response changes everything.
Sonia's response of unconditional love and acceptance rather than condemnation offers a radically different path to salvation, one of shared suffering, empathy, and spiritual connection. It directly challenges his isolated, intellectual pursuit of power, suggesting that true humanity lies not in transcending morality, but in embracing the very connections and compassion he sought to deny.
It's the pivot point.
This moment is the true pivot toward the possibility of his renewal, where the cold logic of his theory finally encounters the warmth of unconditional love.
Even after his confession to Sonia, Raskolnikov remains deeply troubled, particularly by the sinister presence of Svidrigailov.
The dark mirror.
Yes, he feels an urgent need to come to an understanding with that man, even contemplating in cold despair, "Then I shall kill him." He seems to sense this Svidrigailov represents a horrifying potential future for himself. A man who lives completely outside moral bounds, unbound by guilt or consequence, a pure manifestation of unchecked will. Their paths cross in a frightful den of a tavern, a place that Svidrigailov, already exhilarated from drink, describes as a favorite. Svidrigailov, with his cynical and amoral worldview, begins to unravel his disturbing past.
His confessions are chilling.
He admits to being a card sharper, bought out of debt by Marfa Petrovna for 30,000 silver pieces, though he owed 70,000, and kept under her thumb by an IOU. He reveals his disturbing, voluptuous dreams of marriage to a young, humbled girl.
And the engagement.
And casually mentions his engagement to a 13-year-old girl in Petersburg, whom he took home and got to know, offering to assist her education in French and dancing. This unsettling tale reveals a man who pursues gratification without a shred of conscience, for whom others are mere objects to be used and controlled. His predatory nature extends to Raskolnikov's family. He offers Avdotia Romanovna, Dunya, 10,000 rubles.
With strings attached, obviously.
Ostensibly, this is to help her break off her engagement illusion and help Raskolnikov's. But his true, darker motive is clear: to separate her from her brother and her fiancé, and ultimately to gain her affection, or rather control over her, to possess her.
He even hints about Marfa Petrovna's death.
He does, insinuating that Marfa Petrovna's death was caused by being beaten dreadfully by him, but then retracts, suggesting it's only suspicion, adding to his insidious reputation. He also makes it clear that he's in Petersburg, doubtless not without some design, and that Marfa Petrovna left him only a merest sufficiency in her will, so he needs to pursue other affairs. Svidrigailov is a deeply unsettling character, embodying pure, unadulterated self-interest and moral depravity, a stark counterpoint to Raskolnikov's internal torment.
Svidrigailov serves as a chilling mirror for Raskolnikov, showcasing a different, perhaps more depraved manifestation of unchecked will and moral relativism. While Raskolnikov theorizes about the right to transgress and grapples with the immense guilt, Svidrigailov acts purely on impulse and self-gratification, unburdened by conscience or intellectual justification.
He's Raskolnikov without the guilt.
Perhaps. His generosity is always tainted by self-interest and a desire for control. The explicit details of his engagement to a minor and his disturbing motivations reveal a deeply unsettling character, highlighting the real-world dangers of a life lived completely without moral constraints. This raises an important question. Does Raskolnikov see a horrifying potential future for himself in Svidrigailov?
A future devoid of humanity.
A path of nihilistic hedonism, stripped of all human connection and suffering, which is perhaps even more terrifying than the physical consequences of his crime, because it implies an utter void of humanity.
Svidrigailov's dark designs come to a head in a tense confrontation with Dunya. Dunya, demonstrating incredible strength of character, confronts him, firmly rejecting his money and his insidious insinuations against her brother.
But he traps her.
Yes. Svidrigailov, ever the predator, attempts to trap her in his room, locking the door, believing he has her cornered. His chilling words reveal his utter lack of morality. For you could not complain afterwards. You surely would not be willing actually to betray your brother. Besides, no one would believe you. He believes her reputation would be irrevocably ruined, making any complaint futile, leaving her utterly powerless. However, Dunya proves to be formidable. She courageously resists him, retrieving a pistol she had taken for self-defense, and fires it at him twice.
She misses.
Both shots miss, and in despair, she throws the weapon away rather than killing him, choosing not to take a life, even in such dire circumstances. Svidrigailov, unfazed, stands there, waiting, certain she cannot escape, his cold indifference to his own life evident when he tells her she has another charge, and he will wait.
His determination is terrifying.
He stands 2 paces away with wild determination, with feverishly passionate, stubborn, set eyes. Dunya, seeing that he would sooner die than let her go, makes the agonizing choice to throw away the pistol, recognizing that she cannot bring herself to murder, even to save herself. It is an act of preserving her own soul, of maintaining her moral integrity, even in the face of immense danger and potential personal destruction. Svidrigailov then embarks on a solitary, haunting journey through the stormy night. He wanders the streets, his mind filled with disturbing visions, eventually finding refuge in a dirty, low-pitched hotel room.
Surrounded by squalor to the end.
Even here, he is surrounded by squalor, hearing another man in the next room loudly reproaching someone for being a beggar. He makes final arrangements, leaving money for Sonia and for his child bride, the young girl he had taken in. A strange last act of depraved generosity.
And then the end.
At dawn, by the little Neva, he commits suicide, telling the guard with chilling detachment that he is going to America. It is a cold, nihilistic end to a dark life, a final act of self-annihilation, completely devoid of repentance or spiritual struggle.
Dunya's scene with Svidrigailov is a powerful act of moral agency, a stark contrast to Raskolnikov's earlier paralysis. She asserts her will and dignity in the face of profound threat, choosing to resist evil rather than succumb to it. This moment highlights her inner strength and moral fortitude.
She holds on to her humanity.
Svidrigailov's suicide, though shocking, serves as a stark alternative to Raskolnikov's eventual choice. Svidrigailov, completely devoid of conscience and incapable of finding meaning or connection, chooses oblivion. His final detached words to the guard, "I'm going to America," reflect his complete disengagement from life and its consequences, a chillingly empty resolution.
While Raskolnikov chooses something else.
In contrast, Raskolnikov, through his suffering and eventual connection with Sonia, slowly begins to find a different path, one that hints at redemption rather than utter annihilation. It's a fundamental divergence of their two extraordinary men, showing that even those who seek to transgress boundaries ultimately make a choice: self-destruction or the painful path to renewal.
The final act of Raskolnikov's immediate earthly torment approaches: his public confession. He wrestles with the idea, feeling a strange pullback to the scene of his crime.
Revisiting the scene,
He visits the apartment, finding it renovated, new white paper with lilac flowers replacing the old yellow walls, which annoyed him horribly. He almost feels sorry to have it all so changed, a chilling sign of his detachment, a perverse nostalgia for the scene of his horror.
that's deeply unsettling.
Before heading to the police, he shares an emotional farewell with his mother and sister, asking if they will always love me as you do now, revealing a deep, hidden vulnerability beneath his hardened exterior, a flicker of his true self.
A moment of connection.
He gives Dunya the portrait of his deceased landlady's daughter, the strange girl who wanted to be a nun, to whom he had confided much of what later came to be hideously realized. He is still tormented by the idea of senseless sufferings, questioning their purpose, seeking a meaning for his agony. Finally, accompanied by Sonia, Raskolnikov goes to the police office, making a public confession in the Haymarket, amidst a curious crowd. His inner turmoil is still visible, even as he performs this definitive act.
The surrender.
A pale shadow of the man he once was. The trial that follows finds little difficulty. His confession is exact, firmly and clearly, striking the judges and lawyers by his complete detachment from the stolen money.
Which he never even looked at.
He didn't use it or even remember what it looked like or how much there was. The post contained 317 rubles and 60 kopecks, but he never opened it. This detachment, and the fact that he consistently told the truth about everything else, leads to a verdict of temporary mental derangement.
The fashionable theory.
Yes, a diagnosis of homicidal mania, without object or the pursuit of gain, conveniently fitting a popular psychological theory of the time. This theory attempted to explain extreme crimes not as purely evil acts, but as psychological pathologies, shifting focus from moral failing to mental illness, often allowing for more lenient sentences.
Supported by witness accounts of his state.
His hypochondriacal condition is proven by many witnesses, including Dr. Zosimov, his former fellow students, his landlady, and her servant. All this points to him not being an ordinary murderer, but one driven by a unique internal pathology. Meanwhile, Pulcheria Alexandrovna, Raskolnikov's mother, creates her own poignant delusional narrative. She becomes ill, falling into a feverish delirium after Dunya's last visit with her brother.
Protecting herself from the truth.
Razumihin and Dunya construct a story for her, explaining Raskolnikov's departure as a business commission that will bring him money and reputation. But Pulcheria Alexandrovna never questions it. She clings to her own fantastical version, believing he is on a secret mission, constantly reading his old article, convinced he will become a great statesman.
Fueled by stories of his past heroism.
Her imagination is further inflamed by stories of his past heroism, particularly how he had been burnt and injured rescuing two little children from a fire a year ago, an act Razumihin tells her to soothe her. This poignant detail underscores the depth of a mother's love and denial, her desperate need to preserve her son's image and her own sanity in the face of an unbearable truth.
A heartbreaking coping mechanism.
Sonia and he at last set off to Siberia, and at the final leave-taking, Raskolnikov smiles strangely at his sisters and Razumihin's fervent anticipations of their happy future together, as he predicted that his mother's illness would soon have a fatal ending.
Pulcheria Alexandrovna's delusion is heartbreaking, yet entirely understandable. It allows her to preserve her son's image and her own sanity, highlighting the profound power of a mother's love to reshape reality, even against all evidence.
And Raskolnikov in Siberia.
For Raskolnikov, his initial resistance to repentance in Siberia, where he still grapples with this theory, suggests that the journey towards redemption is long and arduous. He questions why he didn't kill himself, pondering if his desire to live was too strong, unlike Svidrigailov.
But Sonia is there.
But the unwavering presence of Sonia, who follows him into exile, proves to be the true catalyst for his transformation. The crucial detail, their hands did not part, signifies a profound shift from intellectual isolation to shared humanity, from a self-made hell to a path of communal suffering and spiritual renewal.
The beginning of something new.
This is indeed not the end, but the beginning of a new story. The story of the gradual renewal of a man, the story of his gradual regeneration, a journey from one world into another, an initiation into a new, unknown life, forged through suffering and unconditional love.
What a journey, really. From the dark corners of Raskolnikov's mind to the stark realities of St. Petersburg and eventually the desolate landscape of Siberia, we've seen how desperation can breed dangerous theories, how the weight of a single act can shatter a soul, even as it opens the door to unexpected paths of redemption and connection, proving that even the most hardened hearts can be softened by unconditional love and shared suffering.
Absolutely. The beauty of this deep dive is realizing that crime and punishment isn't just about a murder, is it? It's about the profound internal struggle with guilt, conscience, and the fundamental human need for connection.
That need for connection is key.
Raskolnikov's path, fraught with moral dilemmas and psychological torment, ultimately leads to a renewal sparked by the unwavering faith and love of another, demonstrating that the only way to truly live is through interconnectedness, not isolated intellectual pride. It's a testament to the enduring power of empathy, even in the face of the darkest human impulses.
So what does this all mean for us, maybe? Perhaps it means that true greatness isn't found in overstepping moral boundaries for some abstract idea, but in the painful, messy, and deeply human process of self-reckoning, empathy, and acceptance.
It's a humbling thought.
It makes you wonder, what are the true costs of intellectual pride? And where do we find our own paths to understanding and connection in a world filled with both suffering and profound love? Is it in the grand theories, or maybe just maybe in the simple act of one hand holding another?